everyone, this is Erin Gates with Lizzie Knits, and today I'm going to show you how to seam up a Mobius cowl. I'm going to show you, this is my latest pattern, my Suzy Snowflake Cowl, but this method applies to my other Mobius cowl designs too. So I'll walk you through everything you need to know, like we had a provisional cast on here, and then how to get this all nice and tidy and seamed in the end. And I'm going to try real hard to film this in one go, so just bear with me if I stumble my words or anything. So let's get going. So here we go. I just finished. So this cowl has 4 repeats of the pattern set, and now I worked up my last row. I already wove in the color B, that was the white. So that one's already cut and it's woven inside here. Actually, there it is. So, and I think I wrote in the pattern too, when you're weaving the ends inside, like you don't have to stress too much. Honestly, you can even just tie a knot on the inside and leave the thread hanging, because this is a Mobius. Everything is tucked on the inside and no one's going to see it. All right, so I also have a long tail, you know, of the yarn that, or this is color A, that we're going to be using for the seam. And generally, I think I wrote like, this is about a yard. I'm pretty generous when I cut my tails off at the end of the project. If you have extra, no worries, you can trim it, but I just hate not having enough. So I always just trim a bunch. All right, so I left the needles in here, and if you are following this pattern, I did put a note about steam blocking. So this is finished blocking. I blocked it on both sides. It took about a day or two to dry. So I just let it sit on the mats, and now that part is done. So the seam, or the stitches, are nice and even and flat, because my color work, when I'm finished, sometimes it gets a little bumpy and it's never perfect, but the seam blocking helps a ton, so I highly recommend it. All right, okay, we got the tail, and these are US 8, so that's what I used for the whole project. Let's leave this alone for a minute and come back to this other side here. All right, this is a cast on edge, and hopefully you followed my other videos about how to do a provisional cast on. So this was with scrap yarn, and this is a placeholder for these cast on stitches. So now that we're done, now's the time where we're going to put the needles back on, because we need to use those stitches again. Okay, let's get into it. And what we're going to do, excuse me, we are going to put all these stitches on a second set of circular needles. So what I recommend is, we use US 8 for this side. I would say use same size or a couple sizes smaller. So I would not do a size bigger for this, because I don't want to stretch out the stitches. So equal or a couple size smaller. I'm going to use a 7. Okay, let me bring this a little closer. So this is kind of, take your time with this. And if you've never done this, if you've never done this before, hopefully this video is going to clear it up a lot, or if you've been intimidated by this process, but just go slow. It just takes a little bit of time. All right, I am going to put all 105 stitches back on here. And the way all right, bear with me for a minute. So the tail, when we chained a couple at the end, it should be easy to pull. And I'm looking at my scrap yarn here. Mine got a little fuzzy from when I was knitting it, probably because the end of the cowl was sitting on my lap and it just got a little felted looking. So I'm hoping mine will easily pull out. If not, you can just trim sections of the scrap yarn as you go and just take a couple off at a time and then put the needles in. And whatever method you're most comfortable with, I just want to say, I would not pull the whole thing out all at once. Just do a little at a time, put the stitches in. Little at a time, put the needle in. All right. So I do have another thing that I want to show you. And again, if you're following the pattern, if you notice that first, so I told you to cast on 1 extra stitch, and I think it's second set up row 2, where then we do a knit 2 together. So now you are at the required amount of stitches. The reason why I tell you to do 1 extra is because we lose a stitch with this provisional cast on. Technically, I'm really going to try hard to show you. Technically, this would be a stitch. I hope you can see us. I know that the yarn is dark, so my apologies. So here's our cast on tail. This should be that first stitch, but we lose it because that's the tail. So that one's going to fall off. So technically, I am only going to have 105 stitches here. Okay, let's get to it. All right, I gotta try to not look through the camera. Please go slow here. Oh, see, my yarn's felting a little bit. All right, get my needle ready. I'm skipping that first one because really that's just a strand now, but so that one is dropped. Here is my first stitch. And I realize I might be pulling this from the wrong direction. Sorry, bear with me. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Yeah, bear with me, please. My yarn did get a little felted. So maybe, hey, FYI, if you're doing a note to myself, use an acrylic yarn next time. Okay, there was the first stitch. So now I can take that scrap yarn out. Okay, that's one. Ooh, we're one stitch on. 104 more to go. Okay, I'm just gonna do this as I go. And I like to put, if you're looking at it from this way, you can put the right leg on top, or onto the top of the needle. So I am trying to get this in focus here. Well, you can see the yellow yarn, I'm sure. So then you can see that's the next stitch. See, there's 2 legs of it. Put the needle in, pull out then that yarn. So, okay, I'm gonna do one at a time. Well, yeah, don't go crazy and just unravel it. I don't do this like super often, this skill, so like I still get a little nervous. I take this step very slow. Okay, next one. Pull that stitch out. Okay, I'm going to continue doing this. 105 stitches around. I'll be right back when I get the needles in. Okay, real quick, I didn't quite finish, but I do want to show you one thing as you're seeing me. I had it backwards when I said what the right leg should be on the front. Switch it, the left leg should be on the front. So if you're putting the stitches in this way, I got a little turned around because we are going to flip it and then meet the other end. So you want, here, if I take this off, the 2 legs, it's really hard to see, I apologize. You want the first leg to go in the back and then the second leg to go on top. Show you that one more time. So here's like the little loop of the stitch. You want to put it over that first leg and through, so the second leg's on top. Okay, I'll go finish this up. Okay, I finished that. Goodbye, scrap yarn. Okay, done with that. And now I have 105 stitches on the cast on edge. So this is still my bind off, or well, I haven't actually bound it off yet. This is with the tails over here. I've also previously woven in all the ends. So like there's nothing on this side. All right, so 105 stitches here and 105 stitches here. They should equal the same. If for some reason, when you were removing your scrap yarn and putting these needles back in, if for some reason you're short 1 stitch than what you have over here, I would say just like lift, like when you get to the center here, just pick up a stitch real quick. That's really like your best bet. So if you're short 1 stitch, don't freak out. That's what I would do at this point. Like just add 1 more. All right, let's take that off. All right, next step. So now, let me see, I can't really get this whole cowl in the shot here. We need to seam this. So if you can see, we have, maybe I can just like bunch it in the middle. All right, these needles are in place from where we finished knitting and they're facing this direction. So now down here, they are also facing this direction. Okay, so if we seam, there won't be a twist in the cowl. So this is one trick I need to show you. We want to place a twist in the cowl before we seam them together. Now, since I twisted it, these are all, they're facing the wrong way. So that's not going to work because we want the needles to be together so then we can seam and seam the stitches off the needle. So my one step before we can continue, I need to slip half of the number of stitches onto the needle. So like, okay, I'm doing this and I don't have any project yarn. So we're working with 105 stitches for this project. So I want to slip halfway around so my needles will be coming out the opposite way. So 105 is not an even number. So I'm just going to slip 52. Totally fine. We're off by 1 and it's not going to disrupt the design at all because we're working with only solid rows. So like continuity will be just fine. I'm not worried. So I'm going to slip 52 stitches. Okay, I'll be right back after I do. So just purlwise. There's 1, 2. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, 52 stitches have been slipped. So now my needles are opening and facing a different direction than when we started. We're opposite of the other end now. See, they used to be facing this way. Now they're opposite. So these are coming out here. These are coming out here. So I'm going to open this up and place a half twist like that. Just a half twist. Okay. And this is what it looks like when it's flat. Here's my ends. Just a little too wide for the camera. So if I'm joining them in the center, we're going to put the seam here and look, now both sets of needles are facing the right direction. We're going to start a Kitchener stitch. And I'm going to walk you through right now. I also have a full thorough tutorial of Kitchener stitch too on this channel if you want to search and watch me do it in a different video, but this will work. Okay. What you want to do is spin your cowl around so it's facing you like this. We want the needle sticking out to the right. So, you know, it's all ready to go. It's ready to get seam. Just spin your project. Okay. And then now we need this long tail that I now got a knot in. Awesome. Hold on. Oh, come on. I almost got it. Knots, knots, knots. They're inevitable, right? Come on. This is stubborn. Oops. Okay, I'll be right back. No more knots, and I'm going to thread this tail through my tapestry needle to start seaming. Okay. All right, here we go. And let me move the camera a little closer so now you can see a little clearer the seam up close. There we go. Let's take the stopper off these needles. The tail's coming out to the right. Yeah, we don't need these anymore. All right, so here's what we're working with. We have two sets of circular needles. Tail over here, and the seam. Okay, this might look foreign to you, but I think it's not as bad as it seems. And we're only going to deal with the top 2 needles. Don't worry about these ones in the back. They're not going to do anything. Let me see if I can lower a little bit more. Oh, there we go. Oh, that's better. Okay, here's the tail with my tapestry needle. Yeah, these back 2 sets of needles will do nothing. These back here. Okay. All right, we are going to start Kitchener stitch. If you know Kitchener stitch, you can skip this part. We're going to do it all the way around. And you can fast forward to then the final end. All right. So another thing about this cowl is my Kitchener stitch is going to act as the final round of the pattern. That's why I had you skip the final set of that last repeat of the chart, because this seam is gonna be that one row. All right, set up for Kitchener stitch. I like to hold, I hold both needles in my left hand, and I like to place my index finger in between, just so, because you're going to be weaving in and out of these stitches. So my index finger just kind of is a little spacer. So it just keeps things less tight and I can actually see what I'm doing. All right, the first 2 stitches of a Kitchener stitch is kind of, the seam is a setup, and then we'll go through the whole process. So the first one, I'm going to stitch in here on the front needle and the back needle, but I'm not going to take them off the needle. This is seriously just a setup. So we always work front stitch, front needle, then back needle. So the front needle is we're going to do kind of like put the needle in as if to purl and pull it all through. Okay. And then the back needle, we're going to pull it through as if to knit. But again, don't take any stitches off the needle. Not yet. We will next time. And please take your time with this whole process. And you're not going to want to pull your stitches like incredibly tight either. We'd like a nice little consistent seam that's going to mimic the size of the rest of your cowl, every little stitch. Okay, so we did a purl and a knit, and now the yarn is over here. And again, I apologize, this is dark yarn, so hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so now let's do the Kitchener process. We do 2 things we deal with 2 stitches on the front needle, then we deal with 2 stitches on the back needle, and then we just keep on doing that. All right, so first front needle, it's knit this one, take it off, and then purl the next one, leave it on. So that's a knit purl, and you always take the first one off and then work into the second one. Okay, so it's knit purl. Now when we move to the back needle, it's the opposite. So purl, take it off, and then knit. Okay, it really, if you are familiar with the Kitchener stitch, just go for it. You're gonna work around this entire set of needles. And also, there's kind of a lot going on here. That's why I encourage you to take it slow. You know, like pull your yarn slow. Pull like everything. You don't want to have it looped around these, because even though these back 2 needles over here aren't doing anything, make sure your long tail is not like wrapping around here on accident when you pull it tight, and then you'll end up with like a big long loop. So just be mindful of what you're doing. All right, let's do that process again. Remember, 2 stitches, we deal with 2 stitches on the first needle, 2 stitches on the back. So we're gonna go knit, and take that one off, knit, and then purl. I don't want my tail to get wrapped around these needles. I almost did. And then in the back, purl, knit. Okay, pull it through, and I'm not pulling these super duper tight. Okay, I'll show you one more time. Knit, purl in the front, pull them all through, and then back needle, purl, and knit. All right, I'm gonna turn my camera off for a minute, and I'm gonna get a little of this established and then come back and show you some tips. All right, I've gotten a little more stitches out of the way here, and I also find it a lot more fluid once you kind of distance yourself from the other end of the needles over here, because it gets a little confusing when everything's like all together. So I think once you like get a little more established and find your rhythm, it's all good. All right, so here is, my seam is in here. This is what I want to show you. So if you can see, hopefully you can't see, it's an invisible seam. It's looking, this really, oh, I actually can't even tell, which is good. You can see where so that would be, well, I guess that'd be that row right here. And I guess, oh, you can see there's a little extra wide stitches here, but I'm not pulling this seam super tight. I want it to look like consistent stitches from the rest of the cowl. Also, if you're pulling your stitches really tight, you're going to have like a line that looks like puckered, and then you'll be able to see where the seam is. So just try your best. If it looks like they're like too loose, what I do sometimes is find the loose stitches, and I kind of like pick at them a little bit and start to like bring them out to where like my tail is. Like these last couple ones that I did were a little loose. So you can just go slow, work with it, and just try your best to make sure that seam is mimicking how the rest of your cowl looks, because in the end it's invisible and it should look, no one should be able to tell where the seam is. So it's a neat little trick. All right, so I am going to continue to do the same process, knit, purl, purl, knit, until we get all the way around to the end here. It take me a few minutes, but I'll be back. And also when you're working through here, since it's twisted, you're gonna have to start like flipping it. When I get to the end here, I'm gonna have to like, you jostle it around a little bit and do your best. It could get a little bunched up, but just do your best because it is all connected and you'll have to get to the other side somehow. Okay, I'll come back when I get to the final end and we'll finish this up. Okay, I am done seaming all the way around, and as you can see, I had to shuffle it and twist it to, you know, as we moved around the turns here. And I only have 2 stitches left, 1 on each needle. So obviously the step's gonna be a little different. I just do a knit and a purl and take them both off the needle. So knit, take it off, purl, take that stitch off, pull it tight. These needles are done. Awesome. So here's what you're left with. And there is going to be a slight, here's the end, here's a slight little, if you can see, slight little gap here. So all I'm gonna do, and again, just do your best with this, I'm going to just make a small little knot like onto like the stitch next to it. Pull that through just to secure this tail, because the whole thing is like enclosed now. So it's not like we can, you know, weave the tail in anywhere. There's nowhere to really do it. So I just did a small knot in here and kind of blend it in as best you can. And then take your needle, poke it through to the inside of the cowl and just only through one side. So it's inside, not out the other end. And then poke it outward so it's still like hollow. Pull that tail through. So there's a seam. Actually, there's my seam. It's in here, and you can kind of like stretch it out a little too and work with it to make it kind of fall into place. Okay, so then my tail's here. Grab my scissors, and there's a knot, so I'm just gonna trim it, and then the tail is just kind of hanging out in the center. No big deal. No one is going to see it. It's all good. Okay, and that is it. Seam is done. I want to show you one other step if you want to. I probably won't do this, but if you feel like doing a light seam or like seam over the seam, go for it before you wear it again. Just let it, you know, if you want to kind of loosen up those fibers even more, one more time on the seam part, but I think I'm gonna let mine be. Okay, here's the cowl. It's a nice little twist in it, Mobius style. Zoom out a little bit. Here we go. All right, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching.